This video is on the immune system. Many different types of organisms have immune systems. Bacteria have immune systems. So do fungi, so do plants, so do amphibians and reptiles. But today we're focusing on our immune system. Our immune system works to combat pathogens, to stop pathogens, which are disease-causing agents, before they cause irreparable harm to our bodies. There are many different types of organisms that can cause disease, including bacteria, fungi, and protists. Viruses can also be pathogens and cause disease. Viruses are considered non-living because they don't have a cell membrane, and they need host cells in order to replicate. Viruses there's all sorts of things that are viruses. SARS-CoV-2, which we know as COVID-19, that's a virus. Ebola is a virus. Zika is a virus. Influenza is a virus. The common cold is a virus. HIV is a virus. And with viruses, you can work on treating them. Okay, there are antivirals or monoclonal antibodies or things like that. But doctors usually find with viruses, the best way is to work on prevention. Okay, with vaccines. Getting a vaccine and then training your immune system to fight off the virus so that if you get the viral infection, you don't get as sick. There are many different living organisms that can be pathogens as well, that can cause disease as well. Bacteria can cause disease. Some of the diseases bacteria cause include strep throat, cholera, tetanus, tuberculosis, staph infections, botulism. These are all infections caused by bacteria. And with bacteria, we usually focus less on prevention, although prevention is important, like having clean drinking water and things like that. But we focus more on treatment as well afterwards, like using antibiotics to kill bacteria, because antibiotics kill bacteria, but not viruses, or phage therapy. Fungi can also cause disease. We can think about like athlete's foot or yeast infections. These are all caused by fungi. Ringworm is caused by a fungi. And again, oftentimes we're looking at treatment. Prevention is really important, but treatment with like antifungals. Protists can cause infection as well. Malaria, dysentery, sleeping sickness are all caused by protozoal infections. And again, you can treat them with antiprotozoals. So all these pathogens infect our bodies, and we have different lines of defense to fight off this infection. The two lines of defense that will be covered in this video are the first and second line of defense. The first and second line of defense fit into a category called innate nonspecific immunity. Innate means we are born with it. So this is the immune response we're born with. And nonspecific means it's not specific to one type of pathogen, and it won't really improve with repeated exposure. So what do these two things mean? Well, let's get into the first line of defense, and I think it'll clear it up a little bit. So when I talk about the first line of defense, I'm talking about the first kind of part of your body that tries to prevent you from getting infected with something, and it provides you with a general infection. When I'm talking about your first line of defense and this general protection, I'm talking about the entryways to your body. And I'm talking about your skin. So the first line of defense, if we're thinking about your skin or barriers, are not specific because your skin, if it's unbroken and doesn't have an opening, is just going to prevent bacteria, fungi, protists, viruses from entering your body at all. So it's not specific to the type of pathogen, and your skin's ability to defend against different pathogens don't necessarily improve upon repeated exposure. Okay. You also have entryways in your body. When I'm talking about entryways, I'm talking about your nose, your eyes, your mouth, your urinary tract. These are entryways in your body, and they're not openings, like they're not like cuts in your skin where pathogens could get in, but they are openings to your skin. And so there's ways we protect ourselves from infection in these openings. So when I think about the first line of defense, I'm really talking about a general protection. Okay. So an outer layer that's preventing pathogens from getting into your body. Okay. So for example, with humans, like we're talking about here, we might be talking about your skin. With plants, we might be talking about like the cuticles, the waxy coverings on plants, or even the cell walls. Okay. Now, what about the openings? The openings of your skin also have a first line of defense. They could have mucus. Mucus can slow or trap pathogens. In your nasal passages, in your lungs, can slow and trap pathogens so that your second line of defense can destroy those pathogens. Okay. You might have secretions that are salty or acidic or have a lysozyme enzyme. And this enzyme can break down pathogens. So, for example, your tears are secretions from your eyes that have antimicrobial properties. Okay. Basically, all of these things, the mucus and the secretions, make the environment inhospitable to pathogens. But again, they're non-specific. They kind of just slow down and break down all types of pathogens the same way. And they react the same every single time. Okay. So that's your first line of defense. Okay, prevent the pathogens from getting in your body or disable them before they can go too far into the entryways. That's part of your innate nonspecific immunity. The second part of your innate nonspecific immunity are the second line of defense here are these more specialized cells, but they're still nonspecific specialized cells. Okay, nonspecific meaning they're looking for anything that's in your body that isn't your own cell. Okay, so let me give you some examples of these specialized nonspecific cells that are part of your second line of defense. Okay, the first cells I want to talk about are the phagocytes. Okay. The phagocytes are really, really cool cells because they connect your second line of defense with your third line of defense. Okay, so phagocytes are basically large white blood cells that eat and destroy pathogens. Okay, and again, they're non-specific because they're going to find any pathogen and try to destroy it. Okay, there are two main types of phagocytes that I want to address, although your body has many, many types of phagocytes. The first type of phagocyte I want to look at is the antigen-presenting cells. Okay, so antigen-presenting cells and neutrophils are both examples of phagocytes. Antigen-presenting cells, two of the common ones you might see in your body, or one of the most common ones, is a macrophage. So let's look at the macrophage. Again, a macrophage is a phagocyte. It's a large white blood cell. It's going to eat and destroy a pathogen. So let's say this is a phagocyte right here, and this is an antigen-presenting cell or a macrophage. So here's the macrophage right here. Okay. And that macrophage has seen this pathogen. And this antigen presenting cell is going to engulf this pathogen through endocytosis. It's going to break that pathogen into little pieces, and it's going to display parts of the pathogen on the outside of its cell. And that part of the pathogen is called the antigen. So basically, let's kind of write this out, okay? First, the antigen presenting cell is going to eat and digest the pathogen. It's number one right here. Okay. Second, that antigen presenting cell, because here it's a macrophage, right? And then this macrophage has displayed the antigen from the pathogen on its cell surface. So now it's known as an antigen presenting cell because it has part of the virus or bacteria or fungus on its cell surface. Okay. And that's going to signal to the rest of the immune system that we have an infection. And that will start our third line of defense. So again, the macrophage eats and digests the pathogen. And the second thing, and this is the key thing it does to activate our more specific immune response, is it displays the antigen, which is part of the pathogen, on its cell surface to signal infection to the rest of the immune system. Okay, so this cell is going to be important later. Right now, it's just important because it's destroying pathogens, right? So some phagocytes are antigen-presenting cells, like macrophages. They are activating the rest of the immune system. But I would say most of the phagocytes are actually in this neutrophil category. Like 60 to 70%, I would say, of the white blood cells are neutrophils, and they just eat the pathogen. So they destroy it so it can't cause any more infection. Okay. So the second line of defense, like once that bacteria or virus gets into your body, are these phagocytes. Okay. These phagocytes are eating the pathogen and destroying them, or destroying them and presenting them on their cell surface. Phagocytes. Okay. Another part of the second line of defense, and again, this is non-specific. Just like the first line of defense, it's kind of treating all pathogens very similarly, okay, is the inflammatory response. The inflammatory response is when injured cells release two different chemical signals, okay? They can release histamines, prostaglandins, or many other chemicals. But both of these chemicals, these are ligands. These are the signaling molecules. They're going to be released by cells. Okay, like let's say this is the injured cell. This injured cell is going to release these prostaglandins and these histamines. And the prostaglandins and histamines are going to travel out to other white blood cells to activate them. So this right here is a really good example of paracrine signaling, short distance signaling. So basically, the inflammatory response can activate other white blood cells, okay? And it can result in a response called the inflammatory response. So signal, response, okay? What is the inflammatory response? Basically, it helps you fight infection. That's its purpose. But what it really does is it causes an increase in body temperature, which you might think of as like a fever or like a hot area of your body. This actually helps your immune system work better. So fevers aren't all bad, right? Also, it helps dilate your capillaries. And if you dilate your capillaries, and that causes swelling. often. When you dilate your capillaries, this is really important because it helps recruit more macrophages to fight infections. So if you have like a hot, swollen area, right? The heat is helping your immune system work better. The swollen part is actually capillaries and other fluid going to that area because of the capillaries dilating and becoming leaky so that macrophages and fluid can kind of go to that area to help fight this infection off, okay? So that's another part of your second line of defense. The last part of your second line of defense are these natural killer cells. Natural killer cells are cells that patrol the body for your body cells that are infected, okay? And it takes virus-infected cells. Natural killer cells take virus-infected cells and cancer cells, and they trigger apoptosis. So the natural killer cells trigger apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. So these infected cells die, okay? So this video covered the first and second line of defense. And then in the next video, we'll cover the third line of defense, which is specific immunity. But remember, both the first and second line of defense are part of innate non-specific immunity.